Story 1. Advertisements are creeping into subscription services. I am paying not to see advertisements. That is the whole point. Story 2. Nothing you buy is obligated to remain the same for its lifetime. Phones and computers are the biggest culprits. However, I bought a treadmill and used it connected to a wireless network for 5 years. It recently pushed a user interface update that forces advertisements during workouts. I am appalled. I did not agree to the change, and there is no way to revert it. After 5 years, I am not in a position to get a refund. This makes me feel out of control even about small things in my life. Story 3. Most products are subscription-based. It seems you can no longer own anything, and large companies will own everything. Story 4. The rise of snake oil salesmen and influencers on social media. Story 5. People feel entitled to watch videos in public without using earbuds. Story 6. People yell and throw tantrums for little or no reason. Retail workers and customer service representatives are abused by aggressive customers. Story 7. An absolute lack of empathy and constant blaming of others for everything. Story 8. It makes me more sad than angry that so much hate and anger is being put into the world. I know much of this is due to rage-generating views, but it seems like the average person is more likely to get angry at minor things and take that anger out on others. I have even noticed an increase in venomous comments on Reddit about benign topics. Story 9. The dumbing down of society and the mistreatment of experts. Accepting the "I did my own research" line is misguided. No, you did not. Watching videos linked to a tinfoil hat-wearing moron on Facebook is not research. Story 10. People care more about punishing others than about helping each other. Story 11. Smart devices are slowly taking over our lives, and soon our toasters will be able to judge us for our breakfast choices. Story 12. The proliferation of technology in general. I'm far from being a Luddite. Smartphones are convenient, and I like wireless internet. That said, I miss the days when I left the house with nothing but my keys and wallet in my pockets. I have always been cash-strapped, so struggling to scrimp and save was a pain even in the old days. Now, if my phone or laptop dies unexpectedly, it will cost at least a few $100s to fix or replace, and I might not have that until next month. In the past, I could just take the bus to another town for a while. But today, I am effectively cut off from temporary staffing agencies, social contacts, and many services that require scanning a quick response code. Until I get my expensive equipment sorted out, I cannot email my job application. I did not receive an important notice from my bank. I cannot complete two-factor authentication, so I am effectively persona non grata online. It feels like a double-edged sword if you are not financially secure. Story 13. People don't seem to be held accountable anymore. It's always someone else's fault. Story 14. Literacy rates are declining. People are stupid and they do not care. Story 15. We are losing our grip on what is considered factual. If someone does not have every tiny detail spelled out for them, the whole concept can be dismissed as fake or as evidence that an organization is lying to us. A little skepticism is healthy, but not when it undermines important, easily verifiable facts that form the basis of our shared reality. Story 16. The belief that free speech means that I can say anything I want and nobody is allowed to disagree or criticize me. Story 17. It has become too acceptable to be a giant jerk in public, and many people think it is wrong to criticize or shame others for public behavior. There should be more social disapproval for acting poorly. Story 18. People have seemingly forgotten norms that felt long established. When walking, keep to the right. When driving and you arrive at a stop sign at the same time as one or more other cars, the vehicle on the right at a four-way stop has the right of way. If you did not arrive first, the right of way is not yours to give. If you have already entered an intersection, do not stop to wave a pedestrian through the crosswalk in front of you. When the right of way is clearly yours, take it. Waving other vehicles on is not being nice. It makes you unpredictable. Story 19. Nazis exist again. Did our grandparents fight for no fucking reason? Story 20. Removing knobs and replacing them with screens in new cars. Story 21. News articles as videos instead of text. I do not want to watch your video. Story 22. The glorification of ignorance and the lack of spelling skills, which I can only speak about in the United States. Story 23. The standard of beauty is not Ozempic and fillers. Story 24. Everything needs an app. I just want to use the website or pick up the phone and speak to an actual human being. The countless vendors you have to manually untick because there is no reject all button for cookies. Shrinkflation. Charging more for less product and expecting customers not to notice. Keyboard warriors. People making choices that benefit only themselves rather than society as a whole. Deliberately misspelling people's names. Advertisements are everywhere and on everything. Long waiting times and limited access to appropriate healthcare. The rich getting richer. I'm gonna stop now. I feel like this post was made for me. Story 25. Working 40 hours a week, regardless of the job, and still not even close to being able to rent a studio apartment. Story 26. There is a vast wealth disparity, and no limits on hoarding are in sight. Story 27. The popularity of a news source is not based on how accurate, fair, and balanced its reporting is, but on whichever outlet says the things that make you and your team, red or blue, feel good. Sensationalism and constant breaking news keep you glued for advertising revenue. Imagine if we listened to people whom both sides respect and if it were possible to find them. Story 28. Angry seems too strong and narrow to describe my feelings. People get their news from short-form social media, take those sources at face value, become jaded, and move to nihilistic conclusions rather than wiser absurdist ones. That is vexing and sad rather than enraging. It is disappointing, though not surprising, given that the average social content producer has no training in journalistic ethics, which shows in their work and in the opinions and attitudes of the people who consume it. Story 29. People not saying excuse me when they bump into or squeeze past you. Story 30. Housing and rental prices are rising rapidly, making them unaffordable for many. I would love to get my own place, but I cannot make it work on my salary where I live. Story 31. Hyperaggression, domineering masculine energy, forcing one's worldview on others, or begrudging others for their personal lifestyle. Story 32. I am with the boomers on these. 1. Everyone expects a tip. 2. Tablet menus. 3. Subscriptions. I would not say that I am angry, but I am not 100% on board with them. Story 33. Almost no stores or restaurants are open 24 hours a day anymore. Story 34. That people think it is okay to have convicted felons and sex offenders in political office. Story 35. In America, tipping culture is completely out of control. Story 36. People have zero tolerance for honest mistakes or mix-ups. It blows my mind how angry customers become and how quickly the "let us see what your board president has to say about this" line appears. Everyone seems to go nuclear and threaten your job the moment they are inconvenienced. For this reason, I am overly patient with anyone providing me products or services. Story 37. It is troubling that society seems perfectly okay with artificial intelligence producing fast, cheap art that copies and builds on human artists' original styles. This undermines opportunities for hardworking artists and prevents them from earning a living when artificial intelligence can create a piece in a few seconds that satisfies many customers. Story 38. People keep getting meaner to each other. Imagine a world where people are at least decent to one another. Everyone has an excuse and a justification, not realizing others say the same. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be better. That is true strength. Story 39. Shame and embarrassment seem to be a thing of the past. People should feel remorse for saying and doing harmful things, and others should tell them so. Story 40. The breakdown of the social contract. People driving the wrong way on streets to beat traffic. People who use speakerphone. Story 41. The erosion and death of the social contract. I shouldn't be surprised at where things are going in America. All I have to see is people driving like idiots who only care about themselves instead of properly signaling, merging, stopping, moving out of the way for emergency services, or following signs and warnings. The same applies to public parks. Walking in no-walk areas, leaving trash everywhere, dog waste, feeding the animals, cutting down trees, marking or breaking rock formations, starting fires in drought conditions, dumping waste in the water, and excessive lights and noise. The maltreatment of green spaces is a direct reflection on society. There have always been people who break the social contract and ruin things for everyone else. The problem now is that society appears beyond the tipping point. People will just get theirs and everyone else can get fucked. Story 42. Having to create an account to purchase items on a website. Story 43. There is intense political division. People have been so on edge since the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, including me. I do not understand why. Story 44. The destruction of political discourse and the promotion of echo chambers largely due to social media. Story 45. Social media influencers and people like the Hawk to a Girl who become famous for basically no reason and then make a large amount of money. And yes, I am jealous, laughing out loud. Story 46. A mass victim mentality taught to this generation leads them to never look inward and to always blame others for the difficulties they experience. Story 47. The Tea Party was followed by Trumpism. It's like watching the worst boss you ever had become an entire political movement. Story 48. A phone bill used to cost $25 a month, maybe an extra $5 for local long distance. Now communications cost much more. A $100 cell phone bill, a $175 cable and internet bill, and a $1,000 phone. That is before you add subscriptions to Netflix and other services. It is insane. Story 49. Subscriptions for everything. I refuse to participate. When cars have to have them, I am fucking walking. I do not understand why people still play video games. If I ever bought a video game and found out I had to buy more stuff to play it, I would return it to the store as defective. It is just theft. Story 50. People stopping in walkways to look at their phones. Story 51. But first, look at this group to learn how to make money online. Story 52. It feels like people don't give a fuck about proper grammar and spelling anymore. I see typos here that would have sparked a flood of corrections back in the day. Today, it seems the grammar Nazis have finally been defeated. Story 53. The loss of safe third places. It feels like we are increasingly isolated from each other. Story 54. Most therapists are offering video only. It is convenient for many clients, but in-person therapy is much better, especially for people who are struggling. It is very hard to find an in-person therapist these days. Story 55. Why do we teach our children to be kind, helpful, honest, respectful of women and law-abiding citizens, but allow a man who is the opposite of all that to run the country for 8 years? Story 56. Artificial intelligence that is running out of control. The proliferation of disturbing videos. Populist politics and their supporters who, when faced with reality, resort to the leopard's ate my face explanations. A disdain for reading. Freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. Cigarette chic becoming the new aesthetic. Story 57. People are not taking accountability for their actions. Story 58. The Make America Great Again movement. Ignorance, fueled by moronic rage, leads to a bad time for everyone. Story 59. It is ridiculous how tipping has expanded from about 5 professions to everyone now trying to guilt you into tipping them. I do not care. The same happens when cashing out at a store and the cashier asks if you would like to donate to a cause. Firefighters stop cars entering shopping plazas for their boot drive. I donate to causes, but keep your hand to yourself. I know where to find you. Thanks. Story 60. Open acceptance of fascism and the price of housing. Story 61. We became more racist in the 2020s than in the 2010s in the United States. Good job, stupid people. You are winning and it is a fucking disaster. Story 62. All sports are being streamed and you need a subscription to watch. For example, why would I pay $80 a year for Entertainment and Sports Programming Network Plus? Then you also have to pay $70 on top of that to watch Ultimate Fighting Championship fights, basketball and football games. Fuck you. Story 63. The need to monetize absolutely everything. Is that really the most noble way we can conceive of contributing to the legacy of our species? Story 64. Advertisements are literally everywhere. My 15-year-old car radio with an old-school display used to show the artist and the song name in green text. Now, between that information, I get advertisements displayed in the green text. Story 65. I reckon the absolute worst change has been the rise of outrage addiction and how many people are constantly seeking out reasons to be angry. Story 66. Accepting the viewing of crime through a mobile phone camera instead of using the phone to request help. Story 67. The breakdown of social teaching from in-groups. In the past, everything you learned socially came from the family around you. Today, many children are sent to daycare, and it is a toss-up whether they will learn social skills or be traumatized by other children who also do not know what they are doing. We now live in a society with few shared standards for dating, friendship, or community. People wander around unsure how or where to meet others. There are no middle ground places meant just for being together. You are either at home or at a place with a purpose where you get in and get out. It is infuriating to watch good people rot away simply because there is no community for them to join. Story 68. How tragically self-conscious people have become on social media. They act as if they must mine every bit of their existence for content. Story 69. The dead internet theory, that artificial intelligence has taken over and only a few human users remain online, is not literally true but might as well be. Artificial intelligence-generated low-quality text is encroaching, and there is a deluge of algorithmically optimized but unsavory content. This technology was supposed to be the end of scarcity and thus the end of capitalism. Instead, it has become a surveillance and diversion apparatus that serves cybercriminals, despotic governments, and employers far better than ordinary people. This is partly because most people cannot afford to pay for it and partly because those actors are highly effective at using it. Story 70. Today, society seems to demand that we live in what essentially amounts to a state of full emotional enmeshment with everyone around us, for the sake of people who cannot tolerate living any other way. Enmeshment is abusive even on a scale of interpersonal relationships, and when all of society demands it, it is little wonder that we are driving ourselves nuts. Healthy people need space, including emotional space, and asking them to give that up is not a reasonable accommodation. Story 71. Parents let their children use social media without supervision and do not provide coping skills or context for the content they will encounter. People under 20 are growing up surrounded by adult conversations they do not understand, and they are not doing the reading required to participate in those discussions. To be honest, they are probably too stressed and dysregulated to sit down with a book anyway. They are also growing up immersed in online criticism, which contributes to being defensive and uncomfortable with vulnerability. I feel bad for them because healing from this will be difficult. Story 72. It might have always been there, but I feel like I am noticing an increasing lack of curiosity, imagination, and independent problem-solving ability. It is as if people want everything spoon-fed and do not want to put in even the most cursory effort to figure out how to do things for themselves. Story 73. You are not allowed to disagree without a doctor of philosophy and several sources accredited by other professionals. Story 74. I am only allowed so many keystrokes per day, so this comment cannot go too deep. If I had to pick one change in society that makes me the most angry, it would be the loss of appreciation for pickles. International Pickle Day came and went without a single pickle being celebrated. Ridiculous. Story 75. The brazen, prideful ignorance and hatred are shocking. I have personally witnessed and been on the receiving end of people saying the most vile and disgusting things. At some point, we forgot that the people we speak to face are fellow human beings trying to get by. This is inexcusable. Story 76. This is American-specific, but about tipping. Tipping went off the rails in 2020. Once the cat was out of the proverbial bag, it never returned to normal. If I order takeout and simply come in to pick up a bag of food, I should not be expected to tip. I was not served and there is no table to bus. You made the food. I bought it for the stated price. Transaction complete. I was at a convenience store recently and my significant other bought orange juice. The cashier turned the card reader around to show a tip screen. That was a cold, packaged item they only had to take from the cooler and bring to the counter. Why, in God's name, would that even be an option to tip? Story 77. I have learned over the past 8 years that a significant percentage of American citizens are total morons. Story 78. The right wing is being elected to school boards and attempting to undermine public schools. Story 79. Just Nazis openly marching around the country. Story 80. The return of fascism. Both my grandfathers opposed Nazis, so we did not have to, right? For goodness sake. Story 81. It is absurd that a narcissistic, wife-cheating con man who was caught red-handed with classified documents after criticizing others for mishandling them is somehow our fucking president. Story 82. Political extremism on both sides is exhausting. I am tired of it. I dislike conservatives and liberals. I find supporters of Make America Great Again especially troubling, and progressive activists also need to stop. I need everyone to stop being rude. Supporters of Make America Great Again, please stop. Transgender people exist. Not every immigrant is a murderer or a rapist. Donald Trump is terrible. Progressive activists, please stop. No one is required to use your pronouns. Biological men should not be playing women's sports. White people are not inherently oppressors. Live and let live. If you oppose abortion, do not have one. If you want to use particular pronouns, you may. Others can choose not to participate, and that is okay. If you do not like transgender people, do not be transgender. Let others live as they please. If you are gay, that is fine. I do not need to know. My frustration sometimes appears more directed at progressives, but that is mostly because at least supporters of Make America Great Again are often open about views I find objectionable. Progressives try to take the high road while also acting poorly, which frustrates me because I generally agree with them and their behavior is making actual progress more difficult. Please stop. Story 83. I cannot watch a television show or a movie without a political agenda at the center of every plot. Story 84. All the drugs everywhere, people driving in confined spaces and in apartment buildings. Yuck. Story 85. People complain because they expect to receive things they did not earn. Story 86. Population growth has increased traffic, and every store I visit is crowded. Story 87. I preferred social change to occur gradually across generations to allow time for proper debate and development. Story 88. Vaccine paranoia. Some people seriously think vaccines change your deoxyribonucleic acid. Didn't anyone learn this in high school? Story 89. People just aren't kind. I don't think it's a new thing, though. Please give people compliments, especially men. Are you angry about the results of the election and how they will affect people? Start small and treat others with kindness. Story 90. My country thinks all of its problems can and should be solved at the federal level, while ignoring state and local policies and issues. Local news programming and outlets have been abandoned in favor of national news channels, creating a country that believes mountain problems can be solved with coastal solutions. Story 91. People in Paris who rub themselves on steel bars because they identify as barosexual. Story 92. Websites, especially news sites, attempt to force me to turn off my ad blocker to view what I am trying to see. I simply go to a different site at that point. Story 93. Communication access and insistent planning have snuffed out much of life's spontaneity. I'm old enough to vividly remember the before times when contact via landlines was a mixed bag and, as long as you were reasonable, you were just out and about. This had its lows, such as unwelcome swing bys, but it also allowed wonderful, memorable moments of connection when both parties arrived with almost no expectations. Story 94. In my town, trucks drive around with billboards mounted on them. They are not carrying anything at all. They are just advertisements moving down the street. This may have always been common in larger cities, but I live in a southern college town and had never seen this until this year. Feels very odd to me. Story 95. People are so afraid of everything. As a species, we have succeeded for hundreds of thousands of years. Many act as if a little adversity will bring about the end of society. Yes, there are things we must improve, but almost none are existential threats. Story 96. ChatGPT and artificial intelligence are discouraging people from using their brains for anything more than a Reddit comment. Story 97. This is not new. United States culture often sets people up for failure and then blames them. I understand that capitalism produces people at the bottom. That is its entire structure. But must we demonize those people? Story 98. The fall of the Roman Empire is relatively recent, considering that Earth may be millions of years old. Story 99. I went to buy socks quickly, and they asked for my email address. Story 100. I examined the rise of emotional intelligence, toxic therapy culture, and life coaching. I looked up articles on Google Scholar because the premise of emotional intelligence raised red flags. Every study I found said that emotional intelligence is correlated with intelligence, yet in popular culture people treat them as completely separate. They are not. It seems therapy culture is adopting neo-spiritualist positions and presenting them in scientific terminology. Story 101. People laugh at everything, even when something is serious or sad. This undermines people's perceptions, and the excuse is that it shows a healthy mindset or that if you cannot laugh at everything you have problems. I think that if you laugh too much at a problem you are facing, you are essentially giving up on solving it. Story 102. Slow streets are giving million-dollar subsidies to homeowners who now have their own taxpayer-funded private roads. Story 103. It's difficult to live a simple, low-cost life anymore. Housing is very expensive, so you often have to keep working full-time just to support yourself. Story 104. The first part of the amendment states that Congress shall make no law, placing a restriction on it. Story 105. Plan to watch movies with no ads. Plan to watch movies with ads. Premium plan, similar to the ad-free plan but more expensive. Please make movies and series accessible again. Story 106. Prioritizing student loan forgiveness overlooks people drowning in medical debt. People choose to go to school. They do not choose to have medical illnesses or trauma. Story 107. The amount of sexual content is everywhere. In ads, in movies, and in shows aimed at teenagers. I hate how normalized it is to sexualize things and people. Story 108. When Walmart asks if I want to make a donation or round up, they do it to obtain tax breaks and public goodwill, not because they genuinely care. Say no. You have no guarantee your money will benefit anyone other than Walmart. Story 109. Authorities want people to be mean. That is just messed up. Story 110. Women who travel to Bangkok and Las Vegas without their partners are often labeled promiscuous or accused of hurting their partners. Story 111. Embracing the idea that you are not responsible for your actions, or that those who make choices should pay higher taxes to offset your lack of responsibility. Story 112. Traditional wives make young girls think that lifestyle is enviable, glamorous, and something to strive for in life. I am all for being a stay-at-home mother, but the traditional wife lifestyle sets women back decades. Story 113. The rise of overt misogyny and its manifestations in politics and social dynamics feels especially alarming because it is increasing significantly among young people. Story 114. Conceited people are proactive on social media, especially when they post thirst traps of themselves every day. Story 115. Every internet forum is being consolidated into subreddits. It is sad that the most authoritarian, censorship-ridden website has a near monopoly on forums. Story 116. Nazis are being accepted into society again. My grandfather died in a war against them, yet they are now the leaders of the country he served. Story 117. Billionaires fund Putin's phantom campaigns to manipulate elections in favor of fascist dictators and their oligarch friends, who hate the rest of humanity because we stand in the way of their twisted fantasies. Story 118. The rise of immature politicians. Work for the people, not affiliated with any political party. Story 119. Protections for ordinary people are steadily degrading. Whether it's legislation, executive orders, or court decisions, much of the progress made in the 20th and early 21st centuries is being rolled back. We are losing the rights and protections that people fought so hard for. Most people do not even Notice the changes until it's too late, and there is little, if anything, that can be done. It often felt like we were moving forward, albeit slowly. Despite many proposed solutions to the problems we face, we cannot marshal the will to implement lasting change that will benefit everyone for generations to come. Story 120. If your user tag for a gaming console is banned, you lose all digital games you bought on that account. More consoles are being made without a disk drive, so you cannot just buy a physical copy instead. Physical copies of games are now just license certificates. You are still required to download the actual game, so even games advertised as playable offline require an internet connection. Story 121. Accepting Trump and his style of hateful rhetoric as normal. Accepting anti-science and anti-government ideologies as normal. Story 122. The polarization of American society. The woke left versus the Make America Great Again right. Story 123. Misogyny is popping up everywhere, along with low-quality funk edits. Story 124. The widespread support and encouragement of war and the automatic labeling of anyone who advocates for peace as pro-Putin. Story 125. Every major institution in America enthusiastically endorses Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.